Welcome to the place where we learn about and learn from the leaders in our field who are powering human creativity. I am Aaron Dworkin, and this is Arts Engines. Thanks again for joining me here on Arts Engines. Today's guest is Karla Donehew Perez, who is founding member of the Catalyst Quartet, serves as violin faculty at the Longy School of Music of Bard College, and is a former fellow of the new World Symphony. Karla, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
And I, of course, would be remiss if I did not also, of course, share that Catalyst Quartet is also part of the overall Sphinx family. You're an amazing Sphinx alum. And I just want to share with the audience that I am deeply honored to just have been able to see this extraordinary trajectory that you have had as not just a musician, but as a leader. And which, of course, is why I was so excited to be able to have you on the show. This show also co-curated with one of our great partners, the New World Symphony, and we'll be talking about some of their programming in just a second. But I thought it would be great, Karla, if you could just kind of share kind of what some of the work is that's happening right now, especially at Catalyst, because there's so many in our audience who either are in various chamber ensembles or just developing performance careers and thinking about that, and wondering if you could just take a quick moment to kind of paint what is that picture of life right now for you that is combining the performance, being a founding member of one of the leading chamber ensembles in the country, and kind of making that world as a leader in the arts. Could you kind of just paint us a quick picture of what that looks like?
Sure. So Catalyst Quartet is very fortunate to be really busy right now. We have a lot of projects that sort of have all come into focus within the last few years. The first being our Uncovered project, which we started in 2018, and it's a sort of ongoing performance and recording project that we wanted to highlight the string quartet applicable repertoire by historically important Black composers. And so over these last few, I should say more than a few years, we have been recording an album pretty much every year, focusing on one or many composers. And so we actually have one coming out in February. That's going to be volume 3, which is very exciting. And this time we're going to have Perkinson, Walker, and Still on one album, which I like to call the American Mavericks. And although that's not the title, obviously. So we have that. So that's been a big focus, just sort of like fundraising and organizing and recording and learning and studying scores and finding music. And that's just like a whole, we could be on that topic forever. So there's that. We also had our 10th anniversary project, which got delayed because of COVID. And so that was a project that we ended up performing a lot in the last season or so. So that came through a commissioning project. And then now we're in residence at the Met Museum in New York City. And so, for example, this month, we have been doing a lot of work staging an older project, which was our first project, the Bach Goldberg variations that we arranged. But it's a concept that we came up with where we are thinking about the idea of transformation. And so we have a performance artist who's staging a whole show. So we're in production right now. But so, yeah, so basically my life is a lot of like many different things. There's the rehearsal and the learning. And then I'm the project manager of the quartet. So I'm doing all of the like long-term thinking, fundraising, sometimes writing grants, and then I also teach, which is a whole nother thing. So, just I've got my hands in a lot of different places. I've been known to have many notebooks sitting around with all the different things I have to think about.
Well, you know, it's amazing. And I love these ideas and the breadth also that you're sharing of what's involved when you have this kind of leadership role. You've got a fundraising piece. And one of the things I loved is you mentioned multiple times this learning piece that you're always learning. And I think that's so key when I see leaders who, especially there are some leaders, oh, they peak, they do something great, there's a bunch of attention. And then just a couple years later, where are they, right? And to have that sustainability, right? Talking about a 10-year anniversaries and going way beyond that, that there is this sense that of one is always learning, one is always adding, evolving, developing their artistry, the value they bring. Feel like that's such a key component that you referenced and that you have. And then the other, of course, talking about partnerships, that building partnerships, that it's never just the ensemble itself or just you doing this work, that you're looking, who can we partner with? Who can we collaborate with? It sounds like.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, the idea of learning, I mean, that's just kind of part of being a musician, right? I mean, we're always striving to be better versions of ourselves to perfect our craft. But beyond that, for me personally, like I never thought that I would be writing grants or anything like that. You know, I've had a big learning curve in that area. I'm still have a long way to go, but sort of like I think it's more like of a personal discovery of finding out like your strengths and the things that you're good at, and then also finding confidence in that, which is really hard because for most of my life, I never thought of myself as somebody who was like necessarily like a great writer or you know, these kinds of things. And sort of like finding that moment of like, oh, you know what, I think I have something there. There might be something there that can be developed. So yeah, that's been a big discovery for me.
Awesome, awesome. So talking about this idea of collaborating and all of that, certainly the New World Symphony is one of these prime examples of being potentially one of the most collaborative orchestras, training development institutions in our country or in the world. And you've had this wonderful experience, obviously coming out as a fellow. And so wondering if you could kind of just share with us a little about kind of that approach at New World as it relates to being collaborative, thinking about the programming that they do at New World.
Absolutely. You know, I have drawn a lot of inspiration from my time at New World, especially my time with Michael Tilson Thomas and sort of how he said something to me at one point when we were when I was a fellow, to the effect of like, people have great ideas. Lots of people have great ideas, but few people really do them. And the action of really completing and actually following through and finding a way to make your great idea happen. I think that's one of the most important things that New World has done. Obviously, they have incredible collaborators. They're always, kind of stretching. While I was there, we did this incredible collaboration with graphic artists, and they drew something to go along with one of the works that we were doing. And this is, of course, in their new grand center, which had only been around for about a year. But this is part of the dream, right? One of these things that MTT thought up and was like, let's do this multi-use hall, and bringing in these artists and working with them. And actually that project really inspired me and actually kind of inspired CQ Minute, which is our 10th anniversary project, in a way. And so I just found my time there was always a real care and meaning to what was being presented and how, and really interesting ways of bringing people in, not just from our music world, but outside of other disciplines.
Yeah, no, and absolutely. And of course, I've had the wonderful opportunity to be there on numerous occasions and see especially that ability to bring technology into the space, and of course we have a wonderful partnership with the Sphinx Virtuosi in New World, and I found myself feeling conflicted about whether I had a better experience inside the hall or outside with the projectors and the amazing wall casts and all of that, because it just adds yet another way to experience the art that they do. And also, you were talking about, again, their kind of collaborations and partnerships. And one of the things it seems to me is that, recently, post-pandemic, post-George Floyd, it seems like many more institutions now are kind of like, oh, we should potentially think about composers of color, where before it was kind of more few and far between. But that New World was really already not just thinking about, and as I loved what you talked about with MTT, doing, not just talking about, but doing inclusive programming. But my sense has been when they take on a project like this, that they really immerse themselves, and almost what you were talking about that you do individually in terms of learning, that New World has done to say, oh, we're going to work with, potentially we want to do something or delve into this project with a composer of color. We're not just going to do it. We want to learn. We want to figure out, how do we do this right? We want to make sure that we're co-curating with whoever we're partnering with, et cetera. Has that been your sense as well?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's one of the things about New World that's so amazing, because obviously it was a center that was created with the idea of having a place for people to continue learning past their schooling, to have a place to grow. And so all of that comes together. And yet at the same time, they find a way to make the fellows not feel like students, which is also a really tricky thing. But yes, I mean, when I was there, they were always ahead of the curve when it came to programming diverse repertoire from composers everywhere. And it had nothing to do necessarily with highlighting specifically composers of color, but highlighting the projects themselves, and in that way being more inclusive than what some people are doing now. As much as I appreciate what people are doing now, I think we have to find a way to make it complete and part of our repertoire, our language, our experience and culture.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And this role that New World has played, obviously in your life and career trajectory, but in so many musicians' lives, I think is so key. It's not even, it goes so far beyond, if you will, the orchestral training I've found. They really are just preparing musicians, like musician citizens, who just come out knowing how to be innovative and how to approach their careers, not just actually in addition to the discipline and the technique and everything that you bring to stage. So it really is extraordinary. So unfortunately, we are just about out of time, but I always like to ask of all of my guests, you have all of these amazing things going on, obviously you're learning, and you've got everything with Catalyst, and you're teaching and doing all of these various amazing things. There's gotta be tough days. There's got to be days where you're like, I can't even deal with this. I don't even want to deal with these people are upsetting me, or this didn't happen, et cetera. And just curious, for those in our audience who may feel like they have a day where they can't overcome the challenges, is there a method that you have? Is there something that you do in the toughest of times to overcome those challenges, or to deal with some of the obstacles that may seem like they're insurmountable?
Absolutely. It's something that I have been thinking about for a very long time. I have a tendency of not being able to turn my brain off when I go to sleep. Like, I just keep thinking about all the things, hence all the notebooks. So actually, something I have always been a fan of is meditation. And for me, that has always worked really well and has been extremely helpful. But taking that a step further, recently, I've been trying this sort of morning routine, inspired a little bit by Miracle Morning, the book. And I find it to be incredibly helpful. But the basic idea, just kind of setting yourself up for the most productivity possible, and in a space of complete calm, and also this idea of confidence, like affirmations and sort of writing down your goals and your dreams, and seeing them as being possible. And you know, you can even go further than that. Like another thing that I really believe in is like small steps to bigger steps to the big goals. So being able to see all the little things that you're doing that will eventually get you, and having the patience to see the trajectory. So those are just some of my strategies that work for me. I don't know if they would work for everybody. I think that, you know, we all have different levels of anxiety. I absolutely struggle. And I think, you know, part of my struggle also has to do with all the traveling. And, you know, sometimes you don't have time to clean your house or do laundry and, like, you know, just like basic things like that. So that's like, but we learn, and I try really hard to not make the same mistakes over, but I do. And then I try again.
Well, you are extraordinary. You're an inspiration to me and to so many others. Karla Donehew Perez, you truly are one of the arts engines who is powering human creativity in our world. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.